I didn't even record my screen. It's dumb. I'd turn the audio on this time though. Today on Notified, we are talking the second major update of 2018 when it comes to the Facebook newsfeed. Hello, I'm Brett Campbell and welcome to Notified, where today we're going to jump straight in. This is update number 2 of 1. If you haven't seen the first update, make sure you go and check that video out where we're talking about the massive major changes that Facebook are making to your newsfeed. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you do, because I explain that in a lot more detail. We're going to jump straight into part 2 here. So this was published January 19th. Newsfeed FYI. Helping ensure news on Facebook is from trusted sources. So this is from Adam Morrissey, the head of Newsfeed, and he goes on and says, last week we announced major changes to the newsfeed that are designed to help bring people closer together by encouraging more meaningful connections on Facebook. Basically today, we're sharing the second major update we're making this year to make sure the news people see while, geez, let me start that again. Too many newsfeed news. Today we're sharing the second major update we're making this year to make sure the news people see, while less overall, is high quality. So in the past video I talked about reach declining massively throughout your newsfeed. Here they're talking specifically about what type of news you're going to be able to see. So Mark Zuckerberg says, continuing our focus from 2018 to make sure that the time we spend on Facebook is time well spent. He goes on to say, again, he wants to encourage meaningful conversations and social interactions. He says, as a result, you'll see less public content, including news, video, and posts from other brands. So we already knew that. But here he goes, after this change, we expect news to make up roughly 4% of your news feed. So basically, as you're scrolling through your news feed, you're going to see 4% of news, down from 5%. Okay, so it doesn't sound like a big drastic change. It's going to be interesting, but when you think about it, for every 10 posts, you're going to see 4 pieces of news instead of 5. So it does actually add up when you think about it like that. Oh, this is a big change, but news will always be a critical way for people to start conversations on an important topic. That's why we're doing Notified, right? It's hot, it's new, it's an important topic. People are more likely going to have a conversation around it. Hence why Facebook really want to put an emphasis on ensuring news is still going to be seen in your newsfeed. Today I'm sharing, this is Mark, today I'm sharing our second major update this year to make sure the newsfeed you see, while less overall, is high quality. I've asked our product teams to make sure we prioritize news that is trustworthy, informative, and local. And we're starting next week with trusted sources. So that opens up a big can of worms there, because it's like, well, what is trusted? You might believe one thing, someone else believes another. How do you know who's right? Are they both right? Is anyone right? Who bloody knows? And this is the dilemma that Facebook are now faced with. They say there's too much sensationalism, misinformation, and polarization in the world today. And this, again, stems from the whole concept around, the presidency, the candidacy, Donald Trump coming into power. They say that, Russia was colluding on Facebook and all of that. There was a heap of things going on about that. People were complaining that all they were seeing was one side of the party's news and they weren't seeing two sides of the story. And this is the problem that we are faced with, or more so Mark Zuckerberg's faced with. So they say social media enables people to spread information faster than ever before. It certainly can. It can make or break you in a second. And if we don't specifically tackle these problems, then we end up amplifying them. That's true, Mark. That's why it's important that Newsfeed promotes high quality news that helps build a sense of common ground. So Mark says here, because my question is like, well, how are you going to even find out what is high quality news? He says, the hard question we've struggled with is how to decide what news sources are broadly trusted in the world with so much division. We could try to make that decision ourselves, but that's not something we're comfortable with. We considered asking outside experts, which would take the decision out of our hands, but would likely not solve the objectivity problem. Of course it wouldn't. It's like, who are you going to ask? If you're talking purely political, what if you go and ask Republicans their advice? What if you go and ask Democrats their advice? You know what's going to happen. You're going to get a very one-sided coin. So they've said here, we've decided that having the community determine which sources are broadly trusted would be most objective. So basically they're saying they're going to ask the community, which is Facebook. But then you're like, well, how's this going to work? Don't worry, Mark's covered it. He says, as a part of our ongoing quality surveys, we will now ask people whether they're familiar with a news source, and if so, whether they trust that source. So here's something that I really want to iterate to you right now. Whenever Facebook put up those little surveys and you go, no, I don't want to do it, no, I don't want to do it, that is an opportunity for you to actually take 10 seconds out of your life and fill out a survey and give your honest opinion, because that's how Facebook's going to grow. If you're not providing feedback to Facebook, you can't expect it to get everything right. It's that whole thing. Don't go and complain if you're not happy with the president if you didn't bloody vote, right? Simple as that. So they're going to now ask the community. So what I'm going to imagine is there's going to be news articles, and there'll be a pop-up saying, do you know the source? Do you trust the source? So you're going to be able to see what you want to as well. The idea is that some news organizations are only trusted by their readers or watchers, and others are broadly trusted across society, even by those who don't follow them directly. We eliminate from the sample those who aren't familiar with the source, so the output is a ratio of those who trust the source to those who are familiar with it. So basically, you're going to get asked two questions. Are you familiar with it, and do you trust it? So if you don't trust it, so there's a lot of news publications out there that just spread shit. Just false news. You have an opportunity now to be able to mark that down. And I dare say, I'm not sure how many strikes it needs to get before it's an untrusted source, but you now have the power to be able to help make this decision a little bit easier for Facebook. This update will not change the amount of news you see on Facebook. It will only shift the balance of news you see towards sources that are determined to be trusted by the community. So I'd like to know how many votes that they're going to take on board to then be able to make a decision. I'd say it'd have to be in the hundreds of thousands before they can accumulate enough data to know if someone's trusted or not. Because you can always get those, people just hate on something, and you get a few thousand people hate on someone, and then all of a sudden they're an untrusted source, but the majority may be interested in them. So they'll have to figure that out. I'm glad I'm not sitting there with the algorithms trying to figure this stuff out. But it is good to see that they are trying to make change. As Mark says, my hope is that the update about trusted news and last week's update about meaningful interactions will help make your time on Facebook well spent. Back to Adam Morrissey. He says, last year we worked hard to reduce fake news and clickbait and to destroy the economic incentives for spammers to generate these articles in the first place. But there is more we can do. Yes, there is. There's always more we can do. In 2018, we will prioritize news from publications that the community rates as trustworthy, right? So you get to vote for that. News that people find informative. Again, you get to vote for it. And news that is relevant to people's local community. So don't be surprised if you start seeing a lot more news surrounding your local area, because I guess what they probably see, Facebook probably predict, is that you're going to have more of a say when there's something surrounding you and it's closer. It's for us being in Australia, news that's happening around the world that, isn't under our own doorstep doesn't feel as important as though there's a building going up next door to me here and it needs a permit and I'm not happy about it, right? They're going to give you news that is more relevant to you. So here is when this is all going to start happening. Trusted sources says, starting next week, we will begin tests in the first area to prioritize news from publications that the community rates as trustworthy. That's the first step. How? Well, we surveyed a diverse and representative sample of people. I wish they would tell you how many people they surveyed there, but it's easy to write it off as we surveyed a diverse and representative sample of people using Facebook across the US to gauge their familiarity with and trust in various different sources of news. This data will help to inform ranking. So again, here it's just happening in the US. It says we'll start with the US and plan to roll out internationally in the future. What the future means, I don't know, but they need to get this right first and foremost in a country so that it works instead of rolling it out around the world and it becoming a debacle. When we rank and make improvements to newsfeed, we rely on a set of core values. These values, which we've been using for years, guide our thinking and help us keep the central experience of newsfeed intact as it evolves. One of our newsfeed values is that stories in your schedule should be informative. Hence why now we're up in our game. I understand this is changing. We need to bring you informative information, which we're trying to do here. If you do think it's informative, please let us know. Comment below. Let us know your thoughts on all of this. But it's just a good example for us all to be able to make sure we're picking up our game, and what we are posting, is it informative? Does it create interaction? Does it create communication between others? For information or for informative sources, we will continue to improve on the work we first announced in August 2016. So again, this is not sort of new. This has been in the making for a long time, where we began asking people to rank the information or the informativeness of updates in a newsfeed on a scale of 1 to 5. So actually remember, I am someone who I do fill out the surveys. Of course, sometimes I'll skip past them, but this to me reiterates the fact that it's so important for us to make sure that we are playing our part in the Facebook world. You know, when there's a survey pop up, answer the questions, because you could be sitting there complaining and you may have been able to have a say around this. Lastly, they're talking about local news. Finally, people want more local news on Facebook. As we announced, I don't know where they got that from. I don't think I ever voted for more local news. Maybe I skipped the survey, who knows. As we announced this month, we're making it easy for people to see local news and information in a dedicated section. We'll continue to work on ways to show more local news. Now, I'm not sure what they mean by a dedicated section. Maybe they'll have a local news tab. That could be interesting, that could be cool. Goodbye local newspapers. But that could be a really good way for them to throw the local news in. And if you want to look at it, you can. I'd much prefer to be able to have a choice if I wanted to. But as an advertiser and, you know, as a digital agency who looks after, you know, many clients' campaigns and you know, ad directives and so forth, it does make it a little bit harder. But you just need to be more smarter with your messaging, with your positioning. So what this means for publishers, they say we'll be working out these efforts for the rest of the year. The first change is in the US next week, so it's happening now. Publications deemed trustworthy by people using Facebook may see an increase. This is cool. So if you are a publication and you get deemed trustworthy, you may actually see an increase. So this whole newsfeed debacle where you're not going to get your information seen, it could be the complete opposite. You could be winning. Publications that do not score highly as a trusted by the community may see a decrease. These changes will be a part of the many signals that go into newsfeed ranking. What do you reckon? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts below in the comments and let's start a meaningful dialogue. Do you see this actually affecting your business? Do you see this as a potential win? Do you see this as a good little kick up the ass? Can I say ass on this show? Of course I can, it's my show. Good little kick up the ass to get you starting thinking differently about your strategy for your business. Now, the questions that I currently pose that I have unanswered are what actually deems news? Like, what is it that actually deems something to be news? You know, because if you look at the actual creation of Facebook pages, there's no actual, you know, news as a fan page option. So it'll be interesting to see what they actually deem as news. Is it if you use the word news, if you use, you know, is there a certain language that you could use to maybe hack the news algorithm? I'm unsure, I don't know, but I'll certainly be trying to figure that out, because it would be nice if we could come up with ways on how you can actually produce your weekly news for your industry. Could be a really good little opportunity to tap into this newsfeed change. So let me know what you think. I guess the news is going to simply constitute the language. They're going to have robots that pick up sentencing structure, things that are time worthy. Yeah, because you always got to go, well, how do they know when I put up a photo of, you know, I'm having a baby? Like that, those posts just get ridiculous reach. You know, I've gotten married. Those type, like there's computer learning that picks up those things. I'm not sure if they scan the images and they're looking for things as well. Who knows? They're probably doing that. But ultimately, the people who are going to win is to be able to, how do you make your content more newsworthy? So it'll be interesting to see as this unfolds, as we find out ways on how to, you know, hack the process and get more views, get more reach. We will let you know. Why? Because you are, I was going to try and throw a notified, fuck, it just didn't work. Yeah. Because you will then be notified. Let's add that little end bit there. Keeping it real. We're not a news channel organisation, as you can see. We're limited by many constraints. But we do our best to bring you the hottest, most up-to-date, and as you said right there, it's the second biggest announcement Facebook has made this year. Pay attention. Then we fade off into darkness. Damn.